Hi, I'm Greg Hunter. Welcome to USAWatchdog.com. With us, we have a three-time best-selling author. His original book, The Harbinger, was a bestseller. It's still on sale. People still buy this book. Also, The Mystery of the Shmita. His latest book, already a bestseller. I think it's number 4 on the bestseller list. The Book of Mysteries. I'm giving it away big time. It's Jonathan Cahn. You can hear him giggling in the background. Let's go ahead and bring him on. Jonathan Cahn, Rabbi Jonathan Cahn. Thank you for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com.
Great to be with you, Greg. Always had a great time last time. I'm glad we could do this again.
You had almost 500,000 views last time, and again, your book, best-selling book, already best-selling book. I mean, this is really bizarre. This comes out, boom, it's already a bestseller. I'm holding it up here. The Book of Mysteries. There's your big name on the bottom, Jonathan Cahn. And I want to, before we go on, I called you Rabbi Cahn, and so people know you are what's called a Messianic Jew. That you are a believer in God the Father and His Son Jesus Christ. You believe in Christ wholeheartedly.
Totally, absolutely. He is the only Messiah, the promised Messiah. He's the Jewish Messiah for everybody, and there is nothing more Jewish I've ever done in my life than to follow the Messiah of Israel, Jesus, Yeshua.
Okay, good, Yeshua. That's great. I want to get into before we get into the Book of Mysteries, and there's a bunch of modern-day mysteries. The book, just to give a little overview, the book has 365 mysteries. It's more than 365 pages, but there's 365 different mysteries in this book, and a lot of them relate to you today. And but I want to start with the Harbinger through the Mystery of the Shmita. And could you update us on that? You said that a great shaking could happen in the fall of 15. Actually, one did. We lost 40% in the Chinese stock market. We had a flash crash of 1,000 points. I mean, we had some big shaking. Did all hands on deck to cover that over.
Yeah.
Then they said they were going to raise rates in September of 15. Who couldn't do that? And when they did it in December, we had the biggest market sell-off in the history of the stock market. But can you give us an update on, the Harbinger, the Shmita, and up to today?
Yeah, and there's much more there's much things happening with the Shmita too. So, I mean, with the Harbinger, which I know we'll get into, we can do it throughout. But yeah, let me start there. First of all, anybody who knows me and who's heard me on every interview and read the book is I always give cautions both directions. One is that to be ready, something could, but you cannot put God in a box. Nothing has to happen in any particular Shemitah, but this is a pattern. However, did the dynamic of the Shemitah take place, manifest? Absolutely, totally. And that's in the book. That basically it is that there is if you look back at the last 7 Shemitahs before this last one, every single one on the year of the Shmita, which is the 7th year, and according to the biblical template, every single one saw a economic or financial crash. Every single one. I mean, from if you go backwards, of course, the Great Depression, the greatest crash, 2008, Shmita of that, 2001, dot-com crash and stock market crash. 1994 Shmita was the greatest bond market crash, which is greater than the stock market, but the great bond market massacre. Back again, the next Shmita, 1987, Black Monday, greatest percentage crash in history. Before that, 1980, another double recession, stock market crash. 1973 and 4, another one, and 1967 you have a stock market crash. So you got all that, but what about 2015? Absolutely, it was the worst year for the stock market in 7 years. It was the long-term crash went all the way from spring into the autumn. It was a crash all around the world. It was a crash in America. It was a crash in Europe. It was a crash. India, I think something like 4,000 points. Brazil, 12,000 points. As you noted, it was for China, here's the other thing. China is now the engine of the world economy. And every other Shemitah year, it was America. Well, what happened to China? It was, it was 43% was wiped out. 43% in 2.5 months, which undoubtedly makes it the most intense stock market crash in world history. Not only that, Greg, though, I mean, if you look in the book, the Shemitah affects trade and other things. Well, the Shemitah of 2015 also saw the collapse of world trade, worst since the Shemitah of 2008. It was the collapse in commodities, collapse in oil, collapse in retail, collapse in earnings, collapse in profits, collapse in industrial production. It was, in fact, the worst year to make money. This will be mind-boggling. The Shmita of 2015, worst year to make money in 78 years since the 1937, which was the Shmita of the end of the Great Recession, of the Great Depression. So you have all that, plus on top of all that, you alluded to it. You also, one of the things we talked about last time, the month of Elul in the Bible, in the Elul of the Shmita year is the month of nullification, financial nullification. Now, nothing had to happen, but it did. What happened is, when you alluded to the Black Monday, and it was the greatest intraday crash in history, and China and the world, that all took place not only in the Shmita, but in the month of Elul, the month of nullification. In fact, of all the stock market crashes in world history, the greatest point crashes, 20% of them were caused by this Shmita, and they all happened in the month in Elul of the Bible's month of nullification of the Shmita. So did something happen? Totally everything happened.
So let's bring us up to right now, today. A lot of people are sitting there. Jeff Gundlach, he manages $100 billion. A lot of my friends, not of my friends, but a lot of my viewers, visitors, they see me. Deutsche Bank is in big trouble now. There's reports out that Handelsblatt, the Wall Street Journal of Germany, says they're going to need Deutsche Bank's going to need a bailout. Bill Gross is talking about buying gold and about it blowing up. Charles Icahn about even Donald Trump has been repeatedly talking about how terrible the Fed has done. They've got a massive economy, that he's talking about a crash. Other people, same thing. Big money managers, you name it, they are all out with big warnings this year that something is wrong. Does that match up to your theological writing and teachings? Does that match up with what you're doing?
It is. A few things. One is, absolutely, we are still on a house of cards. We are standing on a house of cards with debt, with all the propping, as you know. And actually, since the Shmita of 2008, the world economy has never recovered. It has been paralyzed, as you, I'm sure, know. The growth has been paralyzed since that Shmita. And that's with all the lowering of rates, which means that we've got no room for anything. It's a house of cards. When there will be more, well, we shall see. But we are standing on a house of cards of debt, of artificial props. On top of it, I'll share something else I haven't shared before. Well, let me tell you what happened with one of the things it's in the book it's in the Shmita, and actually we have to update it because it's coming true. But one of the things is, if you remember, in the biblical day of the Shmita, not just the year, but the day is called Elul 29, and that's the day every 7 years, one day every 7 years, that financial accounts are wiped clean. Well, that's what we saw, that in 2008. Not only was it the year, but on the actual day, Elul 29, on the day, which is September 29th, 2008, comes the greatest crash in world history on the biblical once in 7 year day. And then if you go back 7 years before that, you come to the other greatest crash up to that day was the one caused by 9/11, which was September 17th, 2001, and that was on the exact same once in 7 year day, Elul 29 of the Shmita. But here's another thing, and this was actually, Greg, noted by secular. I want to tell you something that secular newspapers noted, but they didn't realize what was going on. And that is this. The first part is this: if you take the moment, in the Bible, the Shmita actually determines the timing of calamity. So if you take the moment of the day of the Shmita, 2008, greatest crash in Wall Street history to this day, on September 29th, 2008, you have not only, it's the day of, Shmita is about sevens. It's the seventh year. It's the seventh, all these sevens. It's the day that, well, what happened is, how much was wiped out of Wall Street? 7%. How many points were wiped out of Wall Street? 777.7, on the moment of the sevens. Well, if you take that marker, 4 p.m., stock market closing bell, 777.7, go back 7 in a mystery of sevens. This is actually in the book, but we're going to go forward too. Go back 7 years, 7 biblical years takes you to the closing bell of the crash of 2001, the other greatest crash, to the exact second. Go back then from that day, that's 4 p.m. Monday, September 17th, go back to the seventh day, and it takes you to 9/11. It points not only to the greatest crash, takes you to 9/11. 4 p.m. Go back 7 hours. It takes you to 9 a.m., which is the hour of 9/11. Go back 2 more sevens of minutes. It takes you to 8:46, the minute of 9/11. So this is how precise this is. But now let me do something else, which I couldn't have told you in the last interview because it didn't happen. We have had since then, the greatest global crash of stock markets took place, and I'm sure, took place with Brexit, with the day that Britain seceded from the European Union. Greatest crash since 2008, Lul 29. Well, here's what happens. If you take that same moment on the stock market of September 29, 2008, 777.7, go forward 7 years. And this was in secular newspapers, and they didn't realize what the connection was. 7 years, 7 months, 7 weeks, and 7 days. Where does it take you? It takes you to June 24th of this summer, the day of the Brexit, the greatest global crash since that first day.
Oh,
and it's true. And this was literally in secular financial papers. And what they noted is they said, if you take the day where it was 777.7, but they don't know it was the Shmita. They don't know that happens to be the one day of the 7th year, 7. And they don't know that. And they said, if you take this, it comes there. So this is really eerie. It pinpoints the next greatest crash. Well, the one thing they were missing was the biblical mystery. This is the mystery of the Shmita. That was the day of the Shmita. It's the number of the Shmita, and it's the pattern of the Shmita. Amazing.
Tell me there's not a God. I was on my windshield, there was a butterfly. It was perfectly aligned up on both sides, and I'm sitting there thinking, tell me there's not a God with intelligent design.
Amazing.
Tell me there's not a God who can do that, God.
Amazing.
So let's go forward. What about now? I mean, there's a lot of people who think it's very shaky now. And does this fit in with your theological? Because a lot of money managers they don't get warned to be Ashton Kutcher. They don't get paid to be punked. Just kidding. They don't do that. And there's a lot. I mean, I can't believe all the big people on parade in the last few months that are warning that something is terribly, terribly wrong. How does that fit in with your research in your Bible, our Bible? How does it fit in?
Well, one of the things was, the last thing that thing about Brexit, that takes us to the summer already. So this progression is still in effect. Now we enter the period of, we're in Elul right now, and Elul and Tishri are the most dangerous months. Again, nothing has to happen, but they're the most dangerous months of the stock market. And it was again, but last year during the Shmita. And so we are right now, if you look in the book of Mystery of the Shmita, you'll see there's a section on the Jubilee, and that is that not only we're in the Shmita, we're in the 7th, it's the period following the 7th Shmita, which is the Jubilee period. Now, now it doesn't have to happen, but it means that the same dynamics can happen as well into this period. Either way, I mean, also here's another thing. I'm sure you must have, in all that you do, Greg, you must have touched on this too, but that there's a principle in the Bible linked to this as well. Deuteronomy 28 says that if a nation follows God, it's going to be lending to many nations and not borrowing. And that's a sign of a credit nation, sign of God's favor. America has been the greatest creditor nation in history, but that changed as America has been falling away from God, and this goes with the Harbingers, and that has not stopped either. I know we'll get into that, but the signs. But now as America continues rapidly accelerating away from God, at the same time, what happened is America turned from the greatest creditor nation to the greatest debtor nation. And so now we are on that. So that continues to build where we are now. And again, it's a house of cards. When we see the warnings, it's like earthquake tremors or earthquake, or the what happens before other things. But that is, I believe a great shaking is coming. As far as the timing, we shall see. But we are standing on sand, and we are standing on a house of cards.
I want to get into the Harbinger. You said there was something in the Harbinger years ago that's happening right now. You have not covered that yet, correct? What did you?
No.
What did you put in the Harbinger that is happening right now?
Well, there's a lot. Let me first say this. If your readers have the Harbinger, if they don't, you get it. But the thing is that I wrote the Harbinger a few years ago. It has not stopped. The progression has not stopped. And just for a nutshell, for those who don't know, in a nutshell, it's this. There's a biblical mystery, and that is in the last days of ancient Israel, these signs, these harbingers appeared in the land, and they were warning Israel, warning them of judgment. It was a nation that had known God, fallen away rapidly. And so here these 9 harbingers appear. The people ignore it, and what happens is they continue, they actually accelerate in their free fall from God. And so what's going to happen is judgment finally comes. They are years later, they are wiped out, but it begins with a shaking that comes, which is in a terrorist attack, which America, that's 9/11. But the eerie thing is that those same 9 harbingers that appeared in the last days of ancient Israel are now reappearing on American soil. Specifically, that's what the harbinger is. The 9 harbingers specifically have happened in America, warning that America is the nation in danger of judgment. And what's happened since the harbingers is that we are following the same template. We are actually accelerating in our defiance. We are accelerating in going against God's ways. And I'm going to share several things here. One is this has been since we were last on together. Major things have happened. I won't get into too much detail except to say this. There is a pattern there is a day in the Bible that the hedge of protection was removed from ancient Israel. It was the protective walls of Jerusalem. They were breached by an enemy, the armies of Babylon. And on that day, it was a ominous sign, because once the protective walls were removed, it's saying that judgment's coming. Well, the day is called, on the Hebrew calendar, is called the 9th of Tammuz, Tammuz 9. That has been a day of mourning ever since 2,500 years ago in the Jewish calendar. But here's the thing. That day, in this last year, the year of the Shmita, when was the Tammuz 9? The day that a nation's hedge of protection is removed, or a hedge is struck down. On that day was June 26, 2015. That was the day that America struck down the hedge of marriage in the Supreme Court. On that day, removed the hedge on that day. And that's one of the signs of judgment. Also, when a nation transgresses the ways of God and takes what is sacred and turns it against its purpose, that is a very ominous thing. And since then, we have been it's been even more accelerating. And one of the things, here we are at this kind of crazy election right now. And the thing is that what I didn't know, it just hit me afterwards. I knew it when I wrote it. I wrote The Harbinger a few years ago, long before this election, long before before the last election. And yet in The Harbinger, if your viewers have it, if you look, you will find that actually in The Harbinger, one of the people in there is Donald Trump.
No, you're kidding me. So I was going to ask you, does Donald Trump fit in? Evidently it does. How does Donald Trump fit in?
Well, he is there. I will tell you that. I will tell you he's in the chapter on the tower. And if you remember, those who know, and I know many of your readers, your listeners do, the key is that scripture, when ancient Israel had the attack, and they said, we will come back stronger. Isaiah 9:10, we will rebuild, we'll come back stronger and bigger and greater. But without returning to God, that's an empty, that leads to judgment, actually. Well, I'll just tell you this, people can find it themselves. One of the quotes is from Donald Trump. And the thing is that, and now listen, I will say this. I'm not getting too political, but I will say this, because on one hand, we have a party and we have a candidate who has said deep-seated religious beliefs must be changed. Why? So abortion can expand. That you don't have to guess. That is from Hillary Clinton.
Yes,
and that is clearly and the platform of the Democrat. And it's not about parties. It's about the Word of God. And I don't care which party does what. But here's what it is. The Democratic platform has been the most really on the issues of abortion, the issues of morality, issues of biblical morality and religious freedom has been the most brazen anti-biblical platform this year. And of course, they're good Democrats, but that's the platform, and that is what the candidate is running on. The Republican Party platform has been the strongest for these things, whether for Israel, for life, for religious liberty. At the same time, so I don't see any choice on the one party. On the other hand, Donald Trump is a fascinating situation here. We cannot say he is living in any way, shape, or form an exemplary Christian life. However, he has pledged on issues like the Supreme Court, which are going to affect us for 30 years at least. As well. But at the same time, we have to be careful about something, and that is that he has made statements that are very much like Isaiah 9:10. We're going to be greater than ever. We're going to be, America's going to be greater than ever. That's fine. But you can only be America can only be great by returning to the God who made America great in the first place. So there's hope there. It could be crazy. We don't know. It's a risk, but there's also hope. He's surrounded by believers, and there is hope. But there's also a warning. You cannot become great without returning to God. There's the hope for America is return and revival. And so we are at a really critical juncture. And the other thing, Greg, is this. We've had years of an activist president, and this is not about people, it's about actions, where, pushing America really, it would have happened anyway, but it's accelerated America's free fall from God. Well, the thing is, here's the thing. At this point, we don't need another president who will be an activist president for this to continue. Right now, the ball is already rolling down the hill. We're past that tipping point. It's rolling down the hill. So the only thing that's needed is if we don't have someone who will actively stop it or seek to stop it, it's going to accelerate. So that's the dangerous juncture we're at right now, and that plays into the Harbinger, plays into the economy, plays into everything.
What was Donald Trump's quote in your Harbinger? I don't know if you got that in or not. If you did, I missed it. But what was his quote again?
I said they can find it, but yeah, I'll say it's in the section on the tower, and it's where he says, remember, ancient Israel is remember if you remember that part of the mystery, one of the harbingers is a tower, and ancient Israel, when they have the terrorist strike, they said we're going to rebuild, and they're saying,
yeah.
They're saying we're going to be bigger, higher, build higher, bigger, taller than before. And in the ancient translation of this is the Septuagint. Now, this is a Greek translation that goes back before the New Testament. New Testament quotes from it. When they get to Isaiah 9:10, the bricks have fallen. We will rebuild with hewn stone, bigger. What they say is this. They render it: the bricks have fallen. Come, let us build for ourselves a tower. So literally, we have a tower has risen at ground zero. And the call was, and one of the people who called this, Isaiah 9:10 is saying bigger, better, was Donald Trump. And he says, it's in the book, he says, we have to build it bigger, stronger. He's practically quoting Isaiah 9:10. And actually, when you say, we're going to be great again, yes, but only if we return to God. So not only that, I'll throw this out, and that is, the word, we're talking about tower. Who is associated with tower more than Donald Trump? The other thing is, and the word in when it begins, that Isaiah 9:10, Isaiah says the people are saying this in arrogance. And the word for arrogance is the Hebrew word gadal, and gadal is the word from which you get tower. So it's all linked together. Now, so I'm gonna sum this up, and that is to say this. I don't see any hope on the Democratic side. I do see there can be hope on the Republican side. It's a big risk, but there can be hope. So I only see the opening there. But at the same time, if we're saying we're going to be great and we're going to continue on without God and continue on our course, that's not going to work. That's going to head to disaster too.
So I have a question for you about the Arch of Baal they're building in New York City. Let me bring it back here. They're building an arch to Satan. This is Satan's arch. And my question is simply this. Can there be judgment, instead of all across America, of course it rains on the rich and the poor, but can there be more judgment in some areas, like where they're building the Arch of Satan with taxpayer money, as opposed to St. Louis, Missouri, or, Greensboro, North Carolina? Can that happen?
Yeah, it can happen. And note, we're talking about the Arch of Baal, which I'm going to share with you're going to share something because I saw it firsthand this week. And that is that it happened in New York City, and New York City is also the same city which saw 9/11. And in the Bible, often the capital cities or the symbolic capitals, whether what was 9/11? It was Washington D.C., the capital, and New York City, the world capital, the financial capital of America. So yes, you can have that. It tends to focus that way, but at the same time, keep in mind that things like the Supreme Court decision affects they're making the decision for the entire nation. So we can't rest in that. The ultimate thing regarding judgment, you heard me say this before, and that is that you want to be safe in the times of judgment. Well, the word in Hebrew for safety is Yeshua, and Yeshua is the same word we get Jesus from. You want safety? Get in Him. Make sure your life is right with God, and you don't have to worry. If you get that right, you won't have to worry. Get in His will, and no matter what happens around you, you're going to be safe with Him in one form or another. Now, let me tell you, Greg, what happened this week. First of all, let me give you how this links to the Harbinger totally, and that is that in the Harbinger, we've talked about when the nation of Israel fell away from God, it raced away, actually called evil good, good evil. Well, we're doing that now. Celebrated immorality. We're doing that now. Drove God out of its government, out of its culture. We've done that. We're doing that now. Offered up its children, on the altars of its gods. Sacrificed them. Well, we We have killed about 60 million of our children, unborn children. So we are following that progression. But here's the thing: the template of the Harbinger, we're following it. It has never stopped since the book came out. But here's the thing: what was the god that they were worshiping during the time of their judgment and their apostasy, when all these things were happening? It was the god Baal, or in Hebrew, Baal. And Baal was their substitute god. Baal, or Baal, he is representing the God that the nation turns to when it turns away from their true God. He's the anti-God. He's the substitute God. He's the God representing their apostasy, their fall. He's the God of their judgment. So when judgment finally came, they were worshiping Baal. And by the way, the same God that they also offered their children to. So here is the question: could there be here? America has followed the same course, but of course in America we don't have idols or gods. But the fact is we do. We just don't call them that. But we're following the same spirit. So could the sign of Baal appear on American soil, another harbinger? And the answer is, as you alluded to, it has happened. The sign of Baal has happened in America. Actually, I think we just put up a clip of it last night. People may be able to find it. The sign of Baal is in America. But here's the thing: it happened this just, I don't know when this is going to air, but it happened right around here. It happened this week that we're doing this. And happened in New York City, and they had the arch that led the worshipers of Baal to worship their god. It was from Palmyra, Syria, and so they had this arch there. I was there. We filmed it. I stood there, and there was press there, news there, leaders there, and there were Christians also bearing witness of it. So here's the arch. And remember, you also alluded to this. You get from the word one of the names for Baal or Baal was Baal Zavuv, which means Lord of the Flies. He was also called Baal Zavul, which is Lord of the Dung. And when that got into Greek and English, it became Baal Zavuv became Beelzebub, and Baal Zavul became Beelzebub. This is the words in the New Testament, which are the names of Satan. So yes, behind the mask it's a nation. It's a sign of a nation right now in New York City, same place of the Harbinger, same place of 9/11. It's a sign of a nation that has once known God, but now has turned away from him. It's a sign of a nation that is in apostasy. It's a sign of the Harbingers, because this was the God of the Harbingers. And it's a sign, a warning of judgment, because that's what happened to ancient Israel. And when I was there, they had two people speaking. And the one person spoke, and all he did was basically compare the city where you have the worship of Baal with New York City. And he thought he was lifting up New York City, saying, listen, New York City is now the replacement of that thing. So that was the first thing. Secondly, there was a woman who spoke, and what she said, and I'll quote it, and you may not hear this elsewhere. This is what she said under the arch that led to the temple of Baal. She said, we are doing this also as an act of defiance. You will you'll literally see that in the Harbinger. You'll see those words, act of defiance. When that stone was dedicated, one of the Harbingers at Ground Zero, the governor said, we're doing this in the spirit of defiance. The commentaries that speak of Isaiah 9:10, that vow that ancient Israel said, the bricks have fallen, we'll rebuild, is always said it was the spirit of defiance. So she says, we're doing this as an act of defiance. And she says, and we are showing that we will rebuild. Well, we will rebuild, is Isaiah 9:10. And not only that, but get this, get even more exact here. And that is that in the Harbinger, when they said that vow, it wasn't just that they were building something, they were rebuilding something that was destroyed. Well, what they built, it wasn't just that they were building the arch to Baal in New York City. They were rebuilding because what had been destroyed had just been destroyed, and they were showing an act of defiance. We're rebuilding it. But even beyond, more than that, when in ancient Israel, when they said those words that led to their destruction, we'll rebuild, they were rebuilding specifically what the Assyrians, who were the fathers of terrorism, what the Assyrians destroyed. Well, from the Assyrians, spiritually, you get Al-Qaeda and you get 9/11. Well, we said we'll rebuild. But the arch to Baal in New York City was literally destroyed by ISIS. ISIS are literally the descendants of the Assyrians. Not only spiritually, it's the same place. This came from Syria. That's the Assyrians. This arch came from there. So literally, we are fulfilling. It's scary. It's stunning. we are literally doing exactly what happened in the last days of ancient Israel.
And what I wanted to bring up, and I'm going to bring you back to this, is that those crazy people in New York City are doing this, not me. I mean, I'm not down with the Arch of Baal being built with taxpayer money. I'm not down with it at all. I think I'd like to take a sledgehammer to it and knock it down. So, can there be judgment selectively to New York and not to St. Louis or Boise, Idaho, or Greensboro, North Carolina? Can the judgment be selective, or is it total all across America?
No, it can be. It can be focused. At the same time, I wouldn't take that. Anybody listening in Boise, Idaho, or anywhere else, I wouldn't take that as security, because there's no security outside of God. Number one, and number two, it's also. I mean, these cities represent America, and often you'll see that in the Bible. That's where it happens, but it doesn't mean it just happens there. But it still involves the whole nation turning away from God, and beyond that, also, keep in mind that when the judgment came to ancient Israel in the Harbinger, it focused on Samaria, on the capital city, but it struck the whole land.
Okay, well, let's get back to your book of mysteries. You say there's mysteries that are here today. There's old mysteries. There's new mysteries unfolding that people know about. Listen, it's a 400-page book, Rabbi Cahn. So you're not lazy, I'll tell you that. So you can't get everything done. People are going to have to buy the book, and I'm not just saying that to sell the book, but we can't get to it all. So can you give me a couple of mysteries that are going on today that people need to know about, that will foretell the future, and things they need to know about right now?
Yeah, well, let me give you a quick overview of what it is. The book, if the Harbinger is the revealing of a mystery, the Shmita, mystery of the Shmita is the revealing of a mystery. The Book of Mysteries is the revealing of literally opening up hundreds of the mysteries of God, hundreds of them. And I mean, everything from the mysteries of the end times, mysteries behind history now, mysteries of heaven, mysteries of finding your destiny as well. Mysteries of every kind. And the reason I was led to do it, because of what we're talking about, is I believe it's going to be we're going to have very challenging times ahead, especially for believers. We're going to have very challenging times. And God wants people to be strong. People are saying, well, how do I stand? How do I flourish? You can flourish in the days ahead, and you can actually prosper in the days ahead. I'm not talking just financially. I'm talking about in the most important ways. So I wrote the Book of Mysteries to give strength to not only it's for believers, it's for non-believers, because people are reading it and they're coming to the Lord. So, and it just came out like about a week and a half ago, and so it's literally like opening up a treasure chest. And I'll give it. It's like you're in the Harbinger. I'm returning to that in the Harbinger. I have a narrative that you have the prophet and the man, and it's done that way. It makes it easy. Well, in the Book of Mysteries, a man goes out into the desert and meets a man called the teacher, and the teacher takes him on this journey, this odyssey through mountaintops, caverns, secret chambers, and every day he opens up a mystery of God every day. And so that therefore, and the man records it, and that becomes the Book of Mysteries. So every day, literally, you can read it right through, but it's as you kind of alluded to, it is twice as big as the Harbinger as far as the content. It's more than twice as big. My biggest challenge is how to get these things into one page. How to get these literally could be 365 books. So you can read it also as a devotional, unlike other devotionals in that every day you'll get a mystery, you'll get blown away. But I don't want you just to be blown away. I believe, but also, and you'll be taken on this journey. But I want you also. I'm talking about every listener, every reader. There are things in there to transform your life. And so at the end of every mystery, the teacher gives a mission to apply the mystery to transform your life, because the days ahead are going to be very challenging. And I believe this can literally. I'm not a hype person, but I could promise you that if you apply that and the mission at the end of everything, it will literally transform your life. So let me just tell you some of the big picture stuff with this stuff. One is, well, let me give you this here. In one of the mysteries, the teacher takes the disciple into a room called the Chamber of Books, where he sees the ancient looking books. Actually, the Book of Mysteries looks like one of those ancient books when you see it, as you have a copy. But the thing is that and he shows them this book fading away, where the picture's fading, and on the other side the text is fading, and he reveals the mystery of the apostasy. Now here's the thing. The Bible says in the last days there will be a great falling away from faith. Now we're watching it right now, a great falling away from Christianity. We're watching it now around the world, but there's a mystery in the ancient word, which you would never see. And much of what's revealed in the book are things you would never see. There's many mysteries that have never been revealed before, but also in the original language, you never see it in your translation of the Bible. Apostasia not only means to fall away from faith, it also literally means to depart from the state of being. So what does that tell you? Here's the mystery. In the same day, which is now, when you are seeing a great falling away from faith, falling away from the Bible, falling away from morality, you will also witness a departure from the state of being. What does that mean? Men will depart from the state of manhood. Women will depart from the state of womanhood. Marriage will depart from the state of marriage. Family from the state of family. Mankind, man from the state of humanity. We are witnessing it. So you want to explain, you're watching two things happen at the exact same time. It's not an accident. It was there 2,000 years ago. It's in the prophecy for the last days. It is affecting everything we're doing, and it's right there, hidden in the original language.
Oh my goodness! And what would be another? What would be another thing?
Another one. There's a lot of it. Another one is called in the book is the chiasma. Now people don't have to know what it is. It's a Greek word, but I will just say it's this: God often there's a pattern to how He works. And the thing is that, and he often, what he does is this symmetrical pattern, that the end of something matches the beginning of something. So now there's good news. I mean, there's both about this, and we're talking about what's the hope. Well, here's the thing, that the age, God has set up the age that we're in now as a Hebrew year. Okay, now that's another one of the mysteries. There are seven. There's one of the mysteries, and they're called the seven mysteries of the age. And that the entire age we have now, beginning with the first century, is set up like a Hebrew year, and that reveals all sorts of stuff. One of them being that in the end times, at the end of the Hebrew year, is the time on the ancient calendar called Teshuvah, and Teshuvah means to return. So it means that the end of the age, there's going to be a return that's going to match the beginning of the age. So here's what it is. At the beginning of the age, it means the last days, there's going to be a match to the beginning. In the beginning of the age, you had an Israel in the world. For 2,000 years, you haven't had any Israel in the world, but all of a sudden, Israel is back in the world. That matches the beginning. In the beginning, you had Jewish people in Jerusalem. Hasn't been for 2,000 years. Jerusalem is back. Beginning of the age, you actually had Jewish believers in Jesus. You haven't had that for 2,000. Well, they're back. It's matching the beginning. The beginning of the age, you had a church which was joined to its Jewish roots. Well, you haven't had that. You're having it come again now. And actually, by the way, in the Book of Mysteries, one of the things is that if you don't have to do it this way, but if you match the day, it says day 1, day 2. It doesn't give dates, but if you match that to the year, January 1st. And when you get to the time of the holy days of the Bible, you're going to see mysteries that are going to open up the holy days of the Bible. It matches. But the other thing is that in the beginning of the age, you had an anti-Christian world culture. You had Rome. They were persecuting Christians, throwing them in jail. It means you're going to have that again at the end. You're even seeing the beginning of it now. We're watching this now. But it also means, good news, from the beginning of the age, you have the book of Acts. You had the power of the Spirit of God. You had people standing strong for God. It means you will have that again. So God will give his power to the one who stands. So just in that one word, chiasma is like everything. That's everything. And I'll give you another one. This Greg, this has to do with history that is affecting us to this day. There is and I'm sure many of your listeners have heard of it, but in the book it's called the Chaldean Mystery, and that is this: God gave a promise 4,000 years ago, and this promise has affected our history to this day. It's called, he said to Abraham, I'll bless those who bless you, I'll curse those who curse you. In the Book of Mysteries, it shows you, there's several different ones, and there's actually streams of mysteries, but it goes through that every single nation that has blessed Israel has been blessed, every single nation that has cursed Israel has been cursed. But not just that, whatever you do to Israel or the Jewish people gets done back to you, and you can trace this all the way to the 20th century, 21st century, with the rise of America. Why has America been the most blessed nation in history? It's no accident, because it has most blessed the Jewish people with refuge, and most blessed the Jewish people, Israel, as a nation. So and so here, but now, Greg, we are watching, not only is America falling away from God, we're watching America fall away from its blessing of Israel. We have never had such a bad relationship with Israel as under the Obama administration, and everybody knows this. So what is it telling you? If you abandon Israel, you will be abandoned. If you put Israel in danger, you will be put in danger. And so we are at a dangerous point. We have been blessed as we blessed Israel, but as we turn from Israel, watch out. because it's a perfect storm.
I'm hoping that Donald Trump, who's very pro-Israel, I mean, again, that's another, hopefully a turning back. I'm hoping. One last thing before we close, and you got to listen, folks. You got to get the book. I can't get all the book, but I wanted to get your thoughts on the Middle East. I mean, we just had this dreadful bombing in the ceasefire. That the ceasefire is basically no more. We bombed a position in Syria. We killed 83 Syrian soldiers. Behind the scenes, other reporting, Russians died. Russia is angry. I mean, this is looking like a bigger war. What's your just a quick appraisal on the Middle East and the war drums beating louder and louder?
Well, a few things, Greg, and that is, and I always like to look at the big picture because that tells you more than sometimes at the moment. One is, first of all, there is no peace for the Middle East. There's never been, and let me show you something that goes back, thousands of years to Jesus, to Yeshua. He said to the Jewish people, "You will not see peace. Right now, your shalom or your peace is going to be hidden from your eyes because you didn't recognize the time of your visitation until you say yes to me. There's not going to be so there's been no peace for the Middle East. Number one, there will be no peace for the Middle East. It's always a tinderbox. Always on top of that, as we're watching this, I mean, because actually biblical prophecy. These are some of the mysteries also on top of the other ones, and that is that the Bible says that the Middle East. It says this. It's going to be a center of controversy, and nations are going to be injured on it, and it's going to be a continual thing. But it's not only that. Let me throw this in. This is a different angle, but it's really the angle, and that is that and it goes with it. One of the mysteries is called the mystery of Ishmael. And what we are watching now with all this stuff goes back to the tents of Abraham. Two sons. One son is Isaac. One son is Ishmael. Isaac is the son of Sarah. He's the son of the promise. He gets the inheritance. He gets the blessing. Ishmael is the son of a slave woman. He ends up being driven out of the tents of Abraham. So Ishmael ends up having an anger. He feels he lost what was his. So from Ishmael has come the Arab peoples. From Ishmael, it's not saying all Arabs are like this, but has come Islam, has come terrorism, has come all these things. And what you see is this anger, whether it's Osama bin Laden, whether it's ISIS, whether it's Hamas, whether it's Hezbollah, whether it's Yasser Arafat, all this it all goes back to the mystery of Ishmael, that he's angry and he wants back what he thinks is his. So they want Israel back because they say it doesn't belong to Isaac, the Jews, it belongs to us. They say, well, Isaac has a book, has the Bible. Well, we're going to have our own Bible. We got the Quran. If you want to understand what's happening, this is big. It's bigger than all of us. It goes back to that all the way. So do I see peace? Absolutely not. Until again, like with America, until the reconciliation comes with God. And that, by the way, even if you have peace in the world, if you don't have peace with God, this is how you get it. Doesn't matter what's happening, and that's also the whole point of this.
Well, I could talk to you for, listen, folks, this book is huge. It's massive. I'm holding it up here. It's the newest, this is the trifecta, 3 books, 3 bestsellers. This is his latest bestseller from Jonathan Cahn. It is the Book of Mysteries. He just gave you, a few pages. And went on and gave us a bunch of other stuff. Jonathan Cahn, I gotta thank you. This was a star-studded, fantastic interview. Thank you, Jonathan Cahn, for coming on USAWatchdog.com. I will be linking to your website and to your book page for you folks on YouTube. Just go up to the right through, and it'll say all links are on USAWatchdog.com. Click over there, go to the after interview section. You'll find Jonathan Cahn's book buying page. You'll find Jonathan Cahn's website. Thank you so much, Jonathan Cahn, for joining us today.
Keep up the great work.
All right. Thank you so much, my friend.
Thanks, Greg.